No.
There we go. Good, we're set. We're calling this a time capsule. In the spring of 1961, 43 local residents met at Page School to discuss forming a Friends of the Library group. 50 years later, we've seen a new library and a new edition built, and we're second in circulation of a town this size in Massachusetts. Many of us here have served on the Friends boards or committees or have been library trustees. And all of us are card holders, readers, and book sale buyers.
A few of us spent the summer delving into the Friends' old files, newsletters, and meeting minutes. Yet we know we have surely missed a number of names and events. For what is unintentionally omitted, we apologize. We couldn't figure a way to cover 50 years in 5 minutes, but we're going to try to do it in 10 minutes by hitting some of the highlights.
In 1961, those 43 members began the Friends of the Bedford Free Public Library with the purpose of maintaining an association of persons interested in books and libraries, focusing public attention on the library's services, facilities, and needs, and stimulating gifts to the library of books, magazines, endowments, and bequests.
Trustee Priscilla Forte, responding to a letter from Friends President John Hunefeld, commented that getting answers to the Friends' 6 major questions about how they could help would be comparable to putting socks on an octopus.
In 1962, at our first annual meeting, President John Hunefeld said that public apathy was the greatest single problem for the library, and that Friends needed to make our interest in the library contagious. The first board also included Charles Schwerin, Frederick Bumpus, Barbara Mayer, Bill Robinson, Don Schimmelfennig, and Lois Pulliam.
In 1962, the Hartwell Barn fire brought Friends to the rescue, and they carried hundreds of wet books to the Wade and Schwerin households. We dried, sorted, and sold many of those books at the book fair, also working out of Jocelyn's Fitch Tavern. George Spencer of the trustees gave Friends their thanks for help and gave us permission to save what we could salvage.
In 1963, the board voted to print color postcards picturing the Bedford flag, and Sigrid Reddy was welcomed as the new librarian.
By 1964, sketch plans were proposed for an addition to the old library, now the police station, and eventually for a new building nearby.
In 1966, a special town meeting voted funding for a new library to be completed in 1967. The 1966 annual meeting of the Friends shows a treasurer's report. It's back there on the table in completion, for expenditures for refreshments, and the amounts are quite a contrast to 2011. $26 in all, including 2 bottles of vodka for $12.98, and a huge assortment of sandwich materials, paper products, and such items as 6 loaves of sandwich fried bread at 27 cents each, mustard for 35 cents, olives for 37 cents a jar, and sliced ham for 79 cents. Those were the roaring 60s.
In 1967, the Friends board included Ray Wanta, Barbara Kuhn, Dorothy Bergin, Art and Carol Smith, Judy Brown, John Brown, Lois Brown, Mary Hafer, Bob and Betty Schlecta, Charles Buntschuh, and Lois Pulliam.
On December 5th, 1967, 1,000 high school students using 600 Carling's beer cartons to to move books in a bucket brigade from the old to the new building. Friends of the library were the adult supervisors of the project.
In 1968, Judge Jack Forty was consulted on the issue of sales tax for the Bedford Sampler, and the board discussed incorporation of the Friends.
By 1968, there were 55 members in the Friends, and the group published the first Bedford Sampler, with proceeds going to the library. First gifts from the Friends were a multi-panel standing display board, a glass-enclosed display case, and a starter set of art reproductions to be loaned to library patrons. $1,050 was voted to be spent for these items.
The 1968 board included Barbara Kuhn as president, Dot Bergin as vice president, Fifi Heffermel as secretary, and Ray Wanta as treasurer. Vince McKeon agreed to chair the September Book Fair to be held on the Great Road, with Girl Scouts earning badges by helping with children's book sales.
In 1969, the Friends sponsored an evening with the Boston Ballet, and later that year, a film festival and coffee house at the library. The so-called Bedford Bistro made a net profit of only 69 cents, but the ballet made a profit of $230. The films, incidentally, all classics, were Key Largo, The Portage Green, Born Yesterday, and Cyrano de Bergerac.
According to Fifi Heffermel's 1969 minutes, Ray Wanta's call for a volunteer to chair the book fair project met with deathly silence. However, a successful bookmark competition was held in the 8th grades, and the winning design was printed and handed out at the library.
Also in 1969, the board named our core committees. They were membership, philanthropy, bylaws, and book fair. Gift projects were catalogs of museum collections, a librarian's contingency fund, microfilms of the Bedford Minuteman, sculptures for loan, and additions to the record collection.
In 1970, a lecture series on history of Black America was planned, co-sponsored by the JCs and Council on Human Relations.
Also in 1970, it was agreed that having the book fair on Bedford Day was a good idea. Another plan was for a branch library at Ashby Place, and a flyer was designed to be handed out by the welcome wagon.
In 1972, also, Yankee Magazine and Farmer's Almanac requested our permission to reprint 2 recipes from the Bedford Sampler. Alas, there was no record kept of which recipes these were. Maybe somebody here knows it. Joan Frenny raising her hand.
In 1971, head librarian Sigrid Reddy resigned to take a position at the Watertown Library, and Eleanor Arthur was named new head librarian.
In 1972, the Friends held an open house at the library to show off new acquisitions, such as a microfilm machine, a copier, and other special displays and equipment. Budget cuts necessitated closing the library on Mondays.
By 1973, the library service was restored on Mondays, and a reception was held to honor Marshall Weber's many years of service to the town. Friends offered a program called Drama and Dessert in cooperation with the community theater.
In 1974, a revised Bedford Sampler was copied, replanned, and to be chaired by Virginia Wharton.
In 1975, head librarian Ellie Arthur resigned and moved to Worcester. Children's librarian Sharon Lawrence, later Sharon McDonald, published a newsletter for the children's room with author Emily Doodle being a turtle.
In 1976, Rob Mayer became library director, and the reception to welcome him was held with some 200 people attending.
Other records from 1976 to 1989 have disappeared into the great beyond. Anyone present that might be hiding files from this period is invited to add them to the library's files. You know who you are if you've got them.
And now we jump to 1990. In 1990, Friends sponsored a book discussion group called Creators Great and Small, Biographies of the Signers of the Constitution, in conjunction with the Massachusetts Foundation for the Humanities. The Friends also sponsored a photo contest.
In 1991, Library Director Rob Mayer resigned. It sounds like a short time, but it wasn't. And the trustees then appointed Meredith McCullough as new library director. The Friends sponsored the third annual Nancy Payne Memorial Story Hour and Concert program, and the Friends also celebrated their 30th anniversary, sporting a healthy membership of 250.
In 1992 and 1993, talk of a new addition to the library was buzzing, and by 1994, the Friends pledged $2,000 to purchase furniture and equipment for the new addition.
In 2005, Meredith McCullough retired from her position as library director and was replaced by Richard Callahan.
In the last decades of the 1900s and the first of the new century, Friends have continued to make major cash donations to the library and were largely responsible for several lecture series, museum passes, program of museum passes, and other special events or services not easily covered with the library budget.
Celebrations such as the Chinese New Year and other ethnic observances have brought diverse groups into the library. Children's story hours, the largest one this summer, numbered over 100, continue to be wildly popular. Adult book discussions abound, and the meeting room sports equipment, lots of equipment made possible through our donations.
We have been observing One Book, One Bedford for several years and have enjoyed Rare Book and Skinner auction specialists for lively show and tell evenings, as well as a variety of history and art lectures. We've hosted mystery writers, local poets and authors, and artists' exhibitions.
The Friends have held many, many more book sales and continue to do so, as we all know. Added more people to the membership rolls, over 350, I believe, at last count, and are ready to begin our second half century.
And that was 10 minutes. I counted it the other day. We're going to let some very important people take these chairs, and these are former and present library directors that are with us. All but Sigrid Reddy, who couldn't come from Virginia. So come up, all you folks. Take over.